Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I've been looking into that whole email thing with Lesley Groff scheduling the abuse session with Jeffrey Epstein with these two young girls a whole lot. And I've actually been able to put together a timeline, which isn't even complete yet, by the way. I'm actually going to have to make a separate timeline for prior to June 24th because there's so much going on there. And we have a lot of notable pedophile figures such as Leon Black, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Jess Staley, who are all apparently going to show up on the day in question here. But let me run you through my timeline real quick and explain to you how we know that Lesley Groff was scheduling these abuse sessions with Epstein. So it starts on June 14th, where we have a girl who I found out is named Eliza, who emails Lesley Groff, Epstein's assistant, and says, I want to introduce Epstein to my friend. And her friend, I found out, is named Milana. And so Lesley schedules this meeting between this victim and Jeffrey Epstein for 2 p.m. on June 24th. And this is the document here, EFTA 021-35088. This is the document that started it. And I said there's two versions here because you can actually find two versions with different information that's redacted on both documents and kind of put the picture together for yourself. One of these documents has the name of the victim, and the other document will show you down at the bottom, referring to her as, I want to introduce Epstein to my girlfriend. So just know that there's two versions of the same document and they both have the same name. Okay, so then we move forward to June 20th. I'm going to have to explain this, but there's another pair of women that are showing up, and I don't want to get these two pairs of women, the young girls versus the older women, confused. There's a second set of older women that show up, and not only that, but one of the women notoriously set up Epstein with a whole bunch of young Swedish girls who we don't know how old they were, but I want to make sure I distinguish these two things. These are completely separate. This woman who is known for setting up Epstein with girls has nothing to do with these two girls. It doesn't appear, and that they're both scheduling meetings with Epstein originally for different days, although due to rescheduling, they end up being there at the same day. So that's why I include this one, and you can see that at this file name here. So now we move forward to the first day in question, which is June 24th, and at 3:17 a.m., very early in the morning, Eliza, the one who probably knows Epstein already, says that Milana, her friend who she wants to introduce to Epstein, is stuck in Washington, D.C. And they'll end up rescheduling this. But we see that at 10:18 a.m., Lesley sends out basically the daily schedule for the following day, June 25th, to a whole bunch of staff members, and there's a whole bunch of people listed, and things will change, but that's the first instance where Lesley sends out a daily schedule. And then I found a whole bunch of interesting emails from Epstein during the time where they were trying to re-coordinate Eliza and Milana showing up to the townhouse, where Epstein first says at 11:59 a.m., everything okay. And I know that he was talking to one of these girls because just 30 minutes later, he texts the same person and he says at 12:34 p.m., you don't have to come until 2, which is the time where Lesley had scheduled these two girls to show up to the townhouse. So he's talking to them about this problem that they have, and he's saying, you don't have to come until 2. Like basically saying, you have time, don't worry about it. But then what gets really interesting is the last email that Epstein sends during this period, where he says, text Leon, who we'll find out is Leon Black, because I guess he was scheduled maybe for today. I'm still trying to clarify this, but then somehow he also gets put in tomorrow's schedule without any kind of real revision to anything other than the daily schedule, which tells me that perhaps Epstein was telling Lesley Groff to text Leon and update him about this situation with the two girls because it happens at basically the same time, and I have found absolutely no correspondence about Leon throughout this entire day for any other reason. But moving on, about 40 minutes later, we have a voice message from Jeffrey to one of the victims to reschedule their meeting because basically, as you can see, it's 1:54 p.m. They were scheduled for 2. They're still not there yet. They were going to reschedule for 5:30 p.m., but Jeffrey's like, I'll only have 10 minutes at 5:30. So he decides to just say, hey, just come tomorrow. And so what happens, 5 minutes later, Lesley asks Epstein about Lisa's request to reschedule Milana, and they get Milana set up for 10:30 a.m. the following morning on June 25th. But that won't last long, okay? Because Lesley puts out an updated schedule at 7:38, and then 10 minutes later, Lesley reschedules Milana again to 2 p.m. So she went from 2 p.m. on the 24th to 10:30 a.m. on the 25th, now to 2 p.m. on June 25th. Because Epstein, interestingly enough, has this target time of 2 p.m. And why that is, maybe we'll see here in a second because there's some interesting stuff. But about 30 minutes after that, we have the confirmation of 2 p.m. for Milana by her friend Eliza. So we know it's happening at 2 p.m. They're going to show up. But then, interestingly, what I found out is because of this rescheduling, And this is actually out of order, so I'll have to fix this. But at 7:53 a.m., Lesley had to reschedule Darren Indyke, one of Epstein's attorneys who he was going to meet with that day, because of the rescheduling of this girl, Milana. So she's basically telling him, hey, Epstein now has another thing that she's going to do at 2 p.m. with a person. It's funny because she actually referred to another thing that was being scheduled. She actually listed that person's name. I'll be showing this to you in the next video, but she opts to say just a person, very vague, to Darren Indyke, and that's why he's being rescheduled. And I thought that choice of words was very interesting. But we move forward a couple hours, and I included this document here, EFTA 003-88605, because Lesley Groff specifically identifies herself as the assistant of Jeffrey Epstein. And there's no real criminal element to this email, but I really just like it because it says assistant of Jeffrey Epstein, so I'll be showing you guys that as well. But then we see something very interesting. So here's the interesting part, guys. At 12:05 p.m., Lesley begins confirming the 1 p.m. appointment with some anonymous individual who I just, for the love of God, could not find their name in any document. This individual even sends an email back to Lesley 4 minutes later confirming their 1 p.m. appointment that will take place, from the time that it was being sent. But again, I could not figure it out, but I have some ideas of who it might be, and there's some people that are definitely heavily implicated in the sexual abuse of young girls. They're some of the more obvious figures in the Epstein story, in fact. And then from here, we go to 2:51 p.m., nearly a 3-hour gap, where Lesley puts out the updated evening schedule, which is the same schedule just without all of the stuff that's already happened in it. And these schedules are going out to who I presume to be like the house staff, so that everybody knows what's going on and can coordinate for all these meetings that Epstein wants to have. And so this is the second version of the schedule. And what I believe happened was that it's somewhere between 12:09 p.m. and 2:51 p.m., this person, who we don't know, who showed up may have abused these young girls, with Epstein or without Epstein. Again, we have some very interesting people showing up here. We have Jean-Luc Brunel potentially here, we have Leon Black potentially here, and we have Jess Staley potentially here. And there's actually like a total of 3 documents. One of these schedules also says so-and-so will be there at 1 p.m. Like on top of everything else, like it's more important, like hey, important reminder, this person's gonna be here at 1 p.m. And yet they're all redacted so you can't see who they are. But anyways, moving forward, we go to 4:16 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. where Lesley Groff, I assume, is telling Epstein that these other people are showing up now. So whatever happened has happened. We now have this woman named Barbro, I know, weird name for a woman, and then some other woman who I'll show you in the images at 6 p.m. and onward in the barber/makeup room of Jeffrey Epstein's house. I actually found the pictures of that from the FBI to confirm that it was the New York townhouse where all of this was going down. And they're basically all just hanging out together. These 2 young girls, Barbro and her friend, and then Jeffrey Epstein, and then some guy cutting his hair. Epstein's in the barber chair. Everybody else is sitting around him. We actually see Epstein making a kissy face at one of the girls, and there's like a bunch of these photos. There's like, I think, over a dozen photos, and I'll show you those all in my next video. As well as a new timeline. I have to actually make a second one for everything that's occurring before June 24th, so I can show you these emails between Lesley Groff, Epstein, Leon Black, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Jess Staley. Okay, so long story short, guys, this isn't looking good. This does look like Lesley Groff scheduled the abuse of 2 young women, and that Epstein and Lesley Groff potentially invited up to 3 other guys to participate in that abuse. And so I'll try to have this next video where I go really in depth with all this and actually read out these documents and connect all the dots very soon. I'll try to get it out as quick as I can. But I just wanted to show you what I've been working on, and this is it, and it's fucking disgusting. So that's about it. I'll see you in the next one.